You're listening to a Monster Kid podcast.
Hi and welcome to A Dingo Ate My Movie, a podcast that features classic Ozploitation and other weird, wonderful, overlooked and underappreciated Australian films from the 70s, 80s and beyond. My name is Pete and I'm your host.
The Night Rider. That is his name. The Night Rider. Remember him when you look at the night sky.
Welcome to A Dingo Ate My Movie, a podcast about the weird and wonderful Australian films from the 70s, 80s and beyond. I'm your host, Pete, and today I'm joined by Tab and Micah from the Stiletto Banshees to talk about Lake Mungo from 2008. Good morning, Tab and Micah. How are you guys?
We're good.
Good morning. We're doing great. Thank you for having us.
No problem at all. It's good to have two people on instead of one. I usually have one. It's good having two.
I always like doing the show with Tab. You can kind of lean on her for support.
That's why I like doing any show with Tab. So
Same.
No pressure. Today we're going to have a chat about Lake Mungo from 2008. The movie is, I'll just do a quick synopsis here. 16-year-old Alice Palmer drowns while swimming in a local dam. When her body is recovered and a verdict of accidental death returned, her grieving family buries her. The family then experiences strange and inexplicable events centered in and around their home. Profoundly unsettled, the Palmers seek the help of a psychic and parapsychologist. It's too early in the morning to read all this stuff. Ray Kemney. Is it Kemney? Kemney. Ray discovers that Alice led a secret double life. Clues lead the family to Lake Mungo, where Alice's secret past emerges. Lake Mungo is a mystery, a thriller, and a ghost story. That was written by one of the producers. I got that off IMDb Pro.
Oh, okay,
It's
cool.
interesting.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I think the only thing that's a bit...
I'd argue she lived a triple life, even let alone a double life. There was a lot going on.
A lot going on in her, yeah. It was directed by Joel Anderson and written by Joel Anderson, produced by George Neville and Dave Rapsey. The cast is Talia Zaka, plays Alice Palmer, David Pledger, Russell Palmer, Rosie Traynor plays June Palmer, Martin Sharp, her brother Matthew Palmer, and Steve Jodrell plays Ray Kemney. It had a budget of $1.4 million. It looks like it was only in theaters for like a week. I had a look at Box Office Pro or whatever it's called, Box Office Mojo, and I only saw the dates of 30th of July to 2nd of August 2009. It took $8,128. So it's really one of those movies that's quite hasn't been seen all that much. I think it's picked up a second life recently. We'll go into that a bit later, but it was only a movie in the theaters for a short time. It's much better watched on a TV anyway. I think it makes more sense watching it on a TV for sure.
And it warrants rewatches because there's certain twists and turns that when you watch it the second time, it just plays differently.
It does, absolutely, yeah.
Well, and I wonder if that theatrical release was like the After Dark Film Festival, because After
I was
Dark...
going to ask, how did they have a system for how did they pick up movies after the fact, or did they distribute them and control all of that? Maybe they only did like a month.
Maybe they only did, yeah.
Well, yeah, typically, I think with the other After Dark films, they would pick the movies after they had been finished.
Right.
And then they would screen them over a weekend, which it looks like that's kind of what happened here.
But they didn't do a theatrical run?
Yeah. Usually they would go right to DVD or Blu-ray.
Yeah. And like I said, this is much better watched on a TV than...
Right.
I couldn't imagine watching this. When I was watching it, I was like, I couldn't imagine watching this on a cinema screen.
There's too much nuance, and you got to know where to put your eye. And,
yeah. Plus, just the whole way it's made is made for TV, really.
Well, it feels like a Dateline episode, kind of, or
Yeah,
like a true
exactly.
crime documentary.
I was saying, yeah, well, you put in that parlance for you guys. For us, I said to May when we were first watching it, I was like, oh, this is just like watching a ABC documentary. Something
yeah.
like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ratings quite good for the movie. IMDb 6.3 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes for the reviewer score was 96%. The audience score 62%. And Letterboxd, it's a 3.4 out of 5 is the average. So it's
Pretty good.
pretty well rated movie. I'll go into it later, but I actually enjoyed it more the second time when I watched it. So it's where did I watch this one? This is really tough if you're in Australia. If you don't have Brolly, then it seems to be the only place that has it on streaming at the moment. There's a second site, standard edition Blu-ray still available you can buy. There was a deluxe edition or a 2-disc edition, but that's like out of print, sold out. Same, there was a DVD available, and that's apparently out of print as well. So it's one of those. How did you guys watch it?
I bought mine on iTunes.
Okay.
So it's different regionally, probably. So in the US, it's on iTunes for like $8. I watched it there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's probably about this. It's probably available on iTunes here too, to be honest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have to buy it.
Yeah.
It's also available on Prime with ads, which is a terrible way to watch it. You have to watch.
It's a terrible way to watch anything.
Well, true, but definitely something like this.
I really hate the way all these streaming services are suddenly. It reminds me of like pay TV. When we first got pay TV years and years ago, I'm sure the experience is the same for you. The big selling point of pay TV was no ads. You pay money and you get no ads. And then eventually they started sneaking ads in. And now it's just like watching normal TV. So,
yeah, it's going to become like cable. Like streaming is going to be just.
Yeah, it's going to be like come full circle. It's just, it's crazy. Anyway, that's why I buy media. That's my.
Same. I buy digital.
I think we're all on the same. We're on the same boat, right?
Yeah.
So, I try to buy physical when I can. But anyway, I wasn't able to find a lot of trivia for this film. A lot of bits and bobs. The main thing I found out was there's no actual script written for this movie. They had like a, where everything wanted to go and the story, but there was no dialogue for the actors. They were basically given plot points to hit, and then they were interviewed. They were by the director, I think.
That makes sense. That seems to be common for like the faux documentary. Like I think of like Spinal Tap, or I think The Last Broadcast is done that way too. It just feels very natural because it's improv.
Yeah, I think it works really well for this. So the other bits I picked up, Jordan Peele stated in a podcast that he thought Lake Mungo was one of the most frightening movies he'd seen.
That's high praise.
It is high praise. Yeah. It's interesting because, like I said, I'll go into it, but I didn't find it that scary. But there's a difference between scary and unsettling, which we'll get
You
into.
might be talking about the ending because there is it's kind of a slow burn that hinges on like this one stinger at the maybe 2 stingers at the end. And those are so effective that I can see someone coming out of it being like, that thing was terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Lake Mungo itself is about 1,000 kilometres west of Sydney and about 700 kilometres north of Melbourne. So it's a dry lake, but it's. I think we were talking about this before we started, Tab. It's home to the earliest human remains found in Australia and possibly the world. So they found remains at this site that are estimated to be more than 40,000 years old. It's also one of the richest fossil footprint sites ever found, which is interesting. That's all I could find. I couldn't find much else about this film.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, I kind of looked for just production information, and that was about what I could find as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, and like the director Joel Anderson, he's made nothing since.
Yeah,
and
Micah and I were talking about that earlier.
That's crazy to me. Yeah,
that's what I think makes it one of those sort of weird movies in a way. Like you've got it made by
almost
somebody
like it's real.
Yeah. But I don't think he's done anything else. And even some of the actors, I don't think have done a lot. Most of them, when I looked at them in IMDb, most of them have done, usual TV stuff and things like that, I think.
Usually for like genre stuff, there's always like a handful of those every decade, I feel like, where like a director makes one, maybe two movies, and then they just go on with their life. They do something else or whatever. The 2000s had quite a few of those, of like, had a big hit and then just kind of
Nothing.
went away.
Isn't that funny? It's interesting how these things happen. It's like they have one great idea and they just sort of get that out there into the world, and then they're, I don't know, satisfied with that maybe. Interested to hear your first thoughts on the movie.
So I watched this several years ago after a couple of people had recommended it as a found footage film I might like. I was pretty well known on Test Pattern for not really enjoying found footage films, so a lot of people would try to recommend things, and this one sounded interesting, and I really enjoyed it, probably because it feels more like a true crime style documentary than something like Paranormal Activity. And I think for me, it's just much more effective than Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity, particularly when we get to the jump scare kind of towards the end of the film. And I felt like even though the film has some ambiguous aspects, the ending felt more satisfying than something like Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity. For me, I know there's plenty of fans of both of those movies, and that makes sense. But yeah,
I'd agree. As a fan of like Blair Witch, I'd say that the ending is both ambiguous and lands enough that you're like, I kind of know what happened, and the parts that I don't really matter. It's fun to speculate.
Right.
Whereas Blair Witch is like, I'm not even sure. I think I know what happened, but that's it.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe I know what happened. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought Joel Anderson struck a really good balance between leaving some things ambiguous and then sort of hitting you with that, oh, she really was there as a ghost the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did a really great job with the pictures and the home movie footage as far as making the Palmers feel like a real family. It's kind of a tricky thing in these kind of movies, and everything felt really genuine.
They play
Obviously,
it very believably too.
Yes, very much
fantastic.
So. Yeah, and obviously they had younger pictures of the actress that plays Alice, so that lended towards making it feel real as well.
Yeah, and they had the grandparents involved and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you really got that extended family sort of feel.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like you would in like a true crime documentary.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see how it affected everybody, and even like neighbors and coworkers and
her boyfriend and friend.
The world building is really good.
Yeah, it really is. It's great.
And then something that struck me both times that I watched the movie was the nighttime time-lapse photography. The clarity of the stars and the way they moved across the sky during the time lapse felt really eerie and surreal. So I think that sort of, in a weird way, lends to the creepy feeling overall in the movie.
What did you think, Micah?
Well, I hadn't seen this one. I had kind of heard of it probably back when it came out as like another one of the After Dark movies. For some reason, my memory of those was like, I kind of wrote them off almost. I didn't understand really what it was. I thought it was kind of like a Masters of Horror, Tales from the Crypt, like they were going to be 1 hour episodic kind of things. I didn't realize they were real movies until much later. And then I started watching some of them, and they're all actually pretty good. But Tab had mentioned it a couple of times here and there that like, oh, this is one of the found footage movies that I really like. So when you brought it up, I was excited to see it, and I was blown away. I'm surprised I hadn't gotten around to it sooner. It's fair to put it in the found footage category. I'd argue that there's kind of two kinds of found footage movies. There's faux documentaries, which this is more like, and then there's like Paranormal Activity found footage movies. And Blair Witch kind of straddles that line and is sort of both. But it's I found footage tends to work the best in faux documentary, I think. It's the most believable. And this movie is just such a roller coaster, man. Like it's both a slow burn and a roller coaster. It's kind of interesting in that way. There's a bunch of twists and turns that you don't see coming. And then it all kind of crescendos with that stinger at the end. And it gets me every damn time. It got me the second time. Both little stingers, there's kind of technically two. They both got me each time. I was like, son of a bitch. I knew it was coming, and it still got me. So that's effective.
Just by the way, we can spoil it here. I always do spoil, like If you want to
Oh,
spoil
okay.
Okay.
stuff, feel
I
free.
figured we would a little bit later, maybe when we got to it.
But feel free to spoil. So
Okay.
if
Yeah,
people are listening to this, they really should watch it first.
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, the mood of it, like it sets a tone, and so the unsettling aspect of it really makes that stinger hit because you're just waiting for something to happen, and then when it does, it's very satisfying.
Yeah. It's like the one jump scare in the whole movie. And
it's a good one.
And I found myself, this is kind of what ruined it for me a little bit the first time through, because I went into this one completely cold. Right? I had no idea. I knew of the movie. I knew it had a reputation, etc. And because of the reputation, I was like, oh, is this going to be like, you know, how movies like Paranormal Activity, they always have jump scares and things like that all the time. And I was thinking, is this was going to happen? And I think I was always kind of waiting for something. And when, the second time, because I kind of knew what was going to happen, I was like, okay, I could just sit back and kind of enjoy it a little bit more. So
Yeah. The second time around too, like you get to so they set up the pictures, right, that the brother is taking and how she's allegedly showing up in them. But if you look at them the first time around again, you can see all of the moments that are revealed later of where she's actually in the pictures. Like she is. Some of those are more obvious than others, like the backyard one. It's so obvious that she is sitting on that bench, but the masterful filmmaking directs your eye so well to that other spot that you never even notice it. It's so effective.
Be interested to know if anyone actually ever noticed it the first time around.
Yeah. Maybe some very astute viewers did.
Yeah, maybe. But it's well hidden, I think. So.
Yeah. The only thing I noticed was that I could see a guy sitting in her room, and I thought it was going to end up being the dad.
Right.
And like he was just hanging out in there because he missed her or something. But
for me, I think this movie is a movie that's probably going to divide a lot of people, because you would have some viewers will find the documentary style probably boring and won't find anything exciting, and they'll be expecting something really scary because it does have a bit of a reputation.
Right.
Others, I guess, will be really taken in and absorbed by the story that's there. And while I didn't find it particularly scary, inverted commas, I found it sometimes really profoundly sad and creepy as well. So it was there's some very disturbing kind of, little bits of this movie, things that are uncovered that are kind of very surprising and sort of, they're not necessarily scary or frightening things, but they just really sort of knock you for six sort of thing.
It feels a lot like, and it's probably an influence on this movie, it feels like Twin Peaks a lot, and there's little homages that I feel like are direct homages. I mean, Alice Palmer.
Yeah.
You have the stuff with the psychic that is sort of like the stuff with the therapist in Twin Peaks, and then just the backstory, the secret backstory about her affair with the neighbor and everything. Like, she appeared to be this good girl that was innocent and actually had like a bit of darkness to her.
Yeah, it was very
that nobody expected.
Yeah,
and there's also like Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks has a premonition that she'll die, so there's that element as well.
When we talk about the movie, I don't think this movie would benefit from just like running it down A to Z. But a few things I wanted to talk about was like the style of the movie, the way they do the mockumentary, and like how it kind of changes the way you look at the movie. And I think we've touched on it a couple of times. Like, it kind of brings you in. I think it brings you into the movie a lot more than if it was just shot like a normal movie. I was wondering, actually, after I watched it the second time, how would this movie have been? What would it have been like if they'd made it as a movie but not a documentary style movie?
Yeah, I think the talking head element of it kind of makes it more engaging because it feels like they're talking directly to you. They're like they're telling you a story. They're pulling you into this, and it feels intimate.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah. And I think it kind of makes the supernatural parts of the movie a little bit more plausible as well, in that way, because it's it's very implausible. Well, it depends, right? If you believe in ghosts or not. I think if you, I considered having a guest on I had a while ago when we did the Babadook to do this movie, but and she's into all this psychic stuff and ghosts and stuff like that. But I didn't want to get super bogged down in the
Right.
in the conversation about ghosts and things. But it was interesting the way I thought that, just talking about the movie in general again, when it all wrapped up, I really thought when it wrapped up that it wrapped up well for the family, but I wasn't sure it wrapped up very well for Alice if she's indeed a ghost. Like they effectively left her behind, right?
Right.
Yeah. They do sort of imply that they felt like she had moved on a little bit, like that she got closure. They kind of imply that, but it does, like she's still in the picture.
Yeah.
In the background in the house.
When they're all standing at the front before they leave.
Well,
maybe she was saying goodbye.
Maybe.
There's that part where like her mom kind of goes back to the psychic to have one last consultation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you line it up with her consultation with him, it's almost like time has sort of fluid and she's experiencing what her mom did, but before. And she says, my mom can't see me, The
movie does that kind of repeatedly throughout where just time is this, like it bleeds, like layers of time kind of bleed over into each other. And not to get too woo-woo or whatever, but like I like that idea of spirituality. I like that like what we perceive as ghosts is just a separate plane that if you go to the right area where it's maybe sensitive or there's a history of spiritual activity or spiritual significance, that's kind of those layers can get blended every once in a while. And that's, it feels like that happens repeatedly. Like she gets the premonitions of her death through dreams, and then other experiences of just her being a ghost she experiences through dreams before she's even dead. It's such a clever thing that when you go back and watch it again, like you see all those little like moments that sync up.
Yeah.
Well, she sees her own dead body, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the big jump.
That's the stinger at the end. Yeah. It's like running, moving at her. And then there's that pause. But the second stinger is when she runs away from it. That's whenever like the pause stops and then she runs from the figure. I love the detail that like I think it's the brother or maybe the dad is saying that they don't think that she saw herself or that she recognized herself, that she just saw a ghost and it freaked her out.
What do you think the significance of her burying all her belongings, though, were?
Tab had more of an idea about this than I did. I was a little unsure. The phone is more just like, I got to get rid of this footage. Like,
that's
a ghost
obvious,
on this footage.
I knew that there was some cultural significance for Aboriginal people there, so I wanted to look it up. I think it is just tied to the fact that they've found possibly the earliest remains, and they specifically, the thing that I read specifically said ritual burial. It's like the first evidence of ritual burial probably in the world.
Oh.
And so Aboriginal people kind of see it as, the cradle of life for them almost. Like that's where life originated because that's where the earliest people were. And so that has a lot of really, really strong significance for them. I thought maybe her burying her things was more related to that there had been people buried there.
Maybe
really,
she was
really
symbolically burying herself.
Maybe
she was trying to put herself to rest, and maybe she didn't even know, like she didn't know that was her. She may have just been compelled to bury this stuff as like subconsciously understanding that that's what happened and that like she needs to put this to rest however she can.
It's an interesting scene, and it's very interesting that I don't know what was I'm trying to work out the time period between when she died and when the family went to Lake Mungo and uncovered her belongings.
I feel like it was at least a year, right?
It was at least a year, right? I was like, how did no one find that in the meantime? She must have dug quite deeply into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how that. It looks like it's kind of a park, basically, like a public park.
Yeah, it is. It's a national park.
How far out were they? Like where it just seems like wasteland to me. Like I can't tell really where you park and how far out they walked. So it may have been like a little ways out from.
I had a look at the I guess, official website of the area, like the National Parks website. And there's like, they say that it's like wherever you're staying, whether you're camping or whether you're staying, they've got some like accommodations there. It's basically too far to walk to, but they're saying that cars and buses go there all the time, sort of thing. So, yeah, I don't know. They were obviously on a school excursion. Whether they were camping or whether they were staying somewhere else, I'm not sure. It was a very creepy part of the movie, but it's interesting because it's really the only part of the movie that, and when the parents go out there, that they're in Lake Mungo, which is the name of the movie. But like you said earlier, Tab, it's a significant event, which is why they named the movie that. The thing that really got me about this movie, especially when I read a bit about it afterwards, is like there's so many theories on what happened and how she died. Like, there's theories online that the brother killed her, murdered her.
On my first go through, I was like sus of him. I was a little bit suspicious of him.
I'm sure he was directed to play it like that, because some people have, some of the theories I saw were like, if you look at the film and look at times that he was filming her, that there wasn't a great relationship. She always seemed to be angry with him. But then there's other videos of him where he's videoed her and she seems quite happy.
Also, the bruises on him don't really fit. That's the one on my second go around. I was like, that doesn't
come back.
That doesn't make sense necessarily, unless she is beating him up, like she is mad at him for something. So that leads me to think that maybe he had some involvement. Also, like the faking the footage and everything felt a little fishy to me. Like his reason for it of like, I just wanted them to believe that she was coming back or whatever. Like,
yeah, I don't know if I can really go with that. I'm assuming she just drowned. I don't know.
Yeah, I wondered if maybe there was some sort of supernatural thing that like caused her to drown, like her own ghost pulled her down or something.
Came back again.
Maybe.
Yeah.
This is our fate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess this is why the film, is like I was saying before, has kind of picked up a bit of a second life. If you look at a lot of watched some YouTube videos around, I watched a couple of reviews, I watched a couple of people just talking about it, and a lot of them are just like, how did she die? Was it the brother? Was it, whatever? But I don't know. For me, when I watched it, I was like, she just drowned. Something happened. She got caught up in something or something like that. So it didn't look like a very deep lake, though.
They sort of set up like, well, he has a line about something about like her jacket or towel was on the beach, so that shows that she never got out of the water. Does it show that she never got out of the water? She just didn't grab her towel. Like, there's also the neighbor that could be involved because he was a little nervous about the affair and the tape. Maybe he did something. Maybe he followed them out there. They bounced pretty quickly after she died. Like they moved.
I found that like one of the most shocking parts of the film, actually, as a twist.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is this? And yeah, I think that's where you really start. I guess that's where, for me, the movie really started turning and twisting. Up till then, it was kind of a bit like just a ghost story. And then once you get to that point, you start having all these other ideas and you start seeing that all is not what it seemed. So,
yeah, it unravels like an onion. It just
it does, doesn't it? It's got layers.
So many layers.
Yeah.
But it's sort of the Twin Peaks thing a little bit of just like it appears to be this one thing, and then the more you like Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks appears to be this one type of person, and then the more you go on, the more you realize, oh no, she had this whole other life.
Well, like the brother faking the footage, and then you find out the psychic had met with her before.
Yeah.
Before she died.
Shady.
Yeah.
With the psychic, I guess he kind of did the right thing by not saying anything, because I guess he wanted to understand what they were trying to do and help them. And I think if he'd brought in the fact that he'd already spoken to her, it would have changed the dynamic quite a bit.
He saved it until it was relevant.
Yeah, I think
Probably.
so. Yeah. What did you think? Do you think he did the right thing by telling them or by not telling them?
That's really complex, because I think he did say she asked that he not share it with anyone. But then, she was dead, and so I don't know
how far does respecting her wishes go.
Yeah.
I guess there's always professional privilege as well, right? So
yeah.
If he's ethical, he's probably not going to share it, really.
Yeah, I would assume like he could kind of hedge in the middle and say, she came to me, but I can't share what she said.
Yeah.
I'll bring it up if it's relevant.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, those scenes were very interesting. Like you said, Tab, the scene at the end when it's almost like, to me, that scene played out almost like her and her mother were having like the same conversation with the guy almost.
Yeah.
It was really...
They were
really
describing the same scene.
Yeah.
It was
yeah.
kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah. The movie is super sad. I actually found it more sad than anything else. Just that, there was that loss of life, the family trying to deal with it. Like
right.
The treatment of and the way they view grief in this movie is very real, I think.
On first viewing, I was like, the mom's a little unhinged. But on the second viewing, the part about her like just walking in the neighborhood and walking into people's houses and being like, I just wanted to see what someone else's life was like. That is heartbreaking. Like,
I thought that too. Yeah.
It's so sad. And I think with the psychic not bringing up the tapes that he had with her, I think they needed to have some supernatural experiences first, because the supernatural experiences are the dreams that she describes.
Right.
She describes these experiences that end up being what they experience with her ghost. So maybe he needed to be confronted with that of just like, wait, you said what? She was doing what now? Or you felt like this was what? Here's these tapes that, align with that.
Yeah, I did like the piece about the neighbor creeping into the house as well and trying to get hold of the tape. And obviously the mother knew that she had like that hiding spot for stuff, but never went in
she had a safe.
Yeah. So, but obviously, it's interesting because at first you're like, oh, what's that movement? Then you go, oh, it's the neighbor. And then
on the first viewing, I thought that I thought there was something off about that, and I think I felt like I was seeing her over there, and then the movement in the hallway happened. I was like, oh, that wasn't what I thought it was, and then clearly you can see that dude like crouched down there.
Yeah,
I don't know how the police couldn't find them though. I mean, it's very hard these days to disappear. Even back then, like it's only what 15 years ago or something. It's based or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Very hard to actually disappear like that.
And especially a whole family,
Yeah.
Yeah, they got to enroll in school somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I think it would have been more than like the father said, Alice's father said, oh, I'd throttle him if I saw him. I think I'd do more than throttle him. But interesting. That whole piece is interesting. I'm like, she obviously babysat for them, and I don't know how she got involved, or was she involved because she wanted to be, or was she involved because she was coerced for some reason? Or
he maybe, had groomed her.
Probably,
when she was younger.
She was still in high school, I think, when she died, right?
I don't know. To me, it's probably the most shocking part of the film. That really, really got to
I was
me.
not
expect
expecting
a ghost. Like when the ghost happens, like you expect that. You don't expect this kind of turn.
No, when the mother started watching the video, and you start seeing the video, I'm like, oh, okay, what ghostly thing is going to happen here? I was like, that's not a ghost, and it was really
that's a creep.
Yeah, really creepy, and the like the mother's involved as well, like both of them.
Yeah, it was like this three-way,
and so she definitely did have that other life. I was going to say something about the music in the film, but the music I think is really kind of sparse. But really well done for this film. I think it is kind of like that documentary style in some places that you would hear in some of these documentary sort of shows. So they've done a good job there. There's nothing, major to stand out. I'm always disappointed when I don't have anything really majorly on the music, because I love talking about the music.
Yeah, it doesn't really guide your emotions or anything. Like it sort of sets a tone of unease, but or sadness or like kind of melancholy, but it's not too much. It's very subtle.
It's very much used as it would be used in one of those documentaries, really, because there's lots of the movie where there's no background music at all.
There's times that feel to me like Werner Herzog's documentaries. They kind of feel like parts of Grizzly Man or Into the Abyss a little bit, where it's like just somber and like intimate and honest kind of.
It's hard maybe to kind of enjoy, if you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
like you can enjoy it, like you can look at it and go, that was a really good movie. But it's hard to I always felt like when I was watching it, there was always, especially the second time, it kind of felt just like with heavy weight around you because there's no real happy ending.
No, there's no levity.
No, there's no
Yeah.
levity at all.
Throughout.
There's nothing really, is there?
But that's how true crime documentaries feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't really have a lot of the ending is never satisfying, and there's not a lot of humor throughout.
Right. And I do think they did a good job of making the family really feel disconnected from each other.
Yeah.
Like even in that last picture they took, none of them are really smiling and they're all kind of standing separate.
It destroyed their life.
Yeah. It did. It's interesting how they all managed the grief too. Like the father just got stuck into work and
Distraction. The mom sort of just went off a little bit and kind of dealt with it in her own way. And the son faked evidence.
Did I get a feeling in this movie so there was a scene where they're talking to the mother and her mother, and to me there was a sense there's some sort of personality disorder that's been passed down through the generations.
Yeah, the grandmother is like, I never gave all of myself to June, and I assume that she never gave all of herself to Alice. Like they withheld love, maybe, empathy, affection. Something was withheld. Yeah, there's some sort of personality disorder going on, and that could be why Alice kind of sought comfort and affection elsewhere. Maybe she did kind of not organize the affair with the neighbor, but leaned into it, seek it out. Yeah, because I mean, if you compare it to Laura in Twin Peaks, she 100% did. Like she 100% sought this exciting, dangerous life. Maybe Alice was kind of doing that because she wasn't happy at home. She didn't feel seen at home.
There is footage at that party where she's talking to the neighbor and is sort of standing in a more flirtatious way, talking to him. So yeah, I don't know.
And we don't know where that falls in. Has the affair happened yet? Is it about to? We're not really told that part, but
whether it's before or after.
Yeah. But her casualness with him doesn't feel like it's one of the other young girls talking to like an elder. It seems like two adults talking to each other.
Yeah. I thought the inclusion of all her school friends from time to time in this was really good, really well done. Obviously in the same style of the documentary, but having some of her good friends sort of speaking up and then later on saying how surprised they were that they didn't realize she had this other life and was doing all this other stuff.
Not only what is it they say? They basically say like, not only did she have secrets, but she didn't even let on that she had secrets. Like there's not even like anything to think, oh, maybe she's keeping something from us. Like that wasn't even the case. Like they never even assumed that she would do something like that.
I think she said something like she even kept her secret or something like that.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, is it really common for kids going to school to have school uniforms? Do like all of the schools have school uniforms?
They all have school uniforms. Yeah.
Is that what those kind of bluish,
like the checkered
whitish
sort of?
dresses?
Yeah, that's that's a classic school uniform. Yeah.
Okay.
Summer school uniform. You can tell. But it's there's all schools in Australia have school uniform.
Oh wow. Okay. That's interesting.
I don't know, it makes it more equal. You don't have kids that are really well off sort of flaunting their great clothes over kids that aren't so well off, sort of thing. It's always the big thing every time you get to near the end of, school holidays in December, about to go into the new school year, you start seeing all the ads on TV for things like that. And then you're always out buying school uniform, and there's always like I remember doing it with my daughter. You go up to the school before school, like, a few weeks before school goes back, and they've got like a shop sort of set up, and you go in and you buy the summer uniform and you buy the sports uniform and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's obviously schools here that have school uniforms, but I think it's a lot less common.
Right.
It's
public
usually like
school.
Catholic school.
Yeah, or
think
charter
religious
school
schools.
or some sort of private school. But public school, tends not to have them. I think my friend's son went to a public school where they had like a dress code.
Mhm.
But it wasn't necessarily a like the same uniform for everybody.
Some are more rigid than others
Yeah.
as far as the dress codes go. We had one. I think every school has like a version of one.
Yeah, this one was pretty strict because they
Yeah.
had to wear like khaki pants and a blue
Ugh.
polo shirt or something.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So you guys obviously didn't wear school uniforms.
No.
No.
We could kind of wear, well, they had a dress code obviously, but we were allowed to wear pretty much what we wanted as long as it wasn't offensive
Yeah,
and it didn't.
no crop tops.
Yeah.
Shorts
Can't show
had
off
to be a certain
shoulders.
length.
You know?
No shoulders. Yeah, shorts had to be a certain length.
Yeah.
I think we touched on it before, but how do you think this film sort of compares with movies like, Paranormal Activity, maybe even The Babadook, talking about not really found footage, but kind of like those ghostly sort of films?
I mentioned before, like I think the faux documentary format is more effective than the traditional found footage, like shaky cam version. So I'd say it's more effective than Paranormal Activity in that way. It's tricky because like Blair Witch kind of straddles that line of the two types and does it pretty well. I think it definitely exceeds Paranormal Activity. I think it makes the characters so much more likable, and the tension they try for in Paranormal Activity, this succeeds on with much less effort.
Yeah, I agree.
Same with the stinger at the end, because the stinger on Paranormal Activity is so elaborate and so like,
and it feels really forced.
Yes, this felt very organic, and because of that build up, like it really punches hard.
Yeah, I think Paranormal Activity and films like that are pretty much just there to get crowds in and make them jump.
Yeah.
I've gone off jump scares quite a bit over the years.
Yeah.
Same.
Especially the musical stinger, that always feels like cheating almost.
Yeah.
But I think when you talked about the like comparing it to the Babadook, I think this feels so much more about the family's grieving process and less about the scares. And I love the Babadook, but that feels much more like a traditional scary movie than this. This has creepy, unsettling moments, but it's more about like unraveling the mystery.
Yeah, that's true. They are both dealing with grief to a degree, though.
That's true. Yeah.
So, which is interesting.
And in that way, they are similar because they are unflattering, unflinching when it comes to grief. And it shows the different ways that it manifests. And I'd say Babadook is like a heightened version of how grief can take over. But yeah, very similar.
Any final thoughts on the film?
I mean, I would definitely recommend this movie. I think I don't know. I think it feels really unique as far as being a mockumentary or found footage film, but it also feels unique being a supernatural film. It's not really like anything you would think. It's not, Sixth Sense and that kind of thing is what comes to mind when you talk about a ghost movie. And it's nothing like that. It is a slow burn, so you have to be patient with it, but I think it excels at creating a creepy, unsettling feeling in the way that the best like written ghost stories do.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd recommend it to anybody that can handle a slow burn, because I know that for some people, they don't really want to sit there without a lot and let the tension build like that. But if you are into slow burns and you can be patient, it's really worth it. It's a very, and it does warrant rewatches because it's just rich with all of this other detail and then the speculation. And if that is your kind of movie, I would recommend it.
I agree. And I think, like you were just saying, it took me really 2 watches of this movie to get the most out of it. And and I reckon that's probably the best way to watch this movie. I most people would see a movie once and be done. I'd actually probably recommend you watch this movie twice.
At least twice. I wouldn't say like it's a good one to put on a Sunday to kind of unwind. Like it's not that kind of movie.
It's not that sort of movie at all.
But if you watch it once, watch it again within like fairly quick succession, and then you can take a break. It's fine. But the second watch is so satisfying.
You miss quite a bit of the subtext in the first viewing.
Yeah.
And since I had no idea what the movie was about, I was kind of, like I said before, I was waiting for jump scares and scary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then watching it a second time, I was able to just relax and let the movie sort of wash over me and sort of get more into it. I wasn't on guard, so to speak. And I definitely recommend it. If you're expecting a Blair Witch or a Paranormal Activity, you're not going to get it. But you're going to get a really good film and an unsettling. Like I said, I can't get over the sadness in the movie. It's a really sad movie, but really good. Really enjoyed it. So do the usual thing and ask you guys what's going on in your podcasting lives and what's happening. I know you both did the Banshees, so interested to hear about that.
I will turn it over to Tab. Let Tab plug us.
So we just released our prom episode. I was going to school, so we got a little bit of a backlog of episodes to come out. So we did just release our prom episode, but we've got some really good ones coming out soon. So
should we tease the topics a little bit?
Yeah, Midsummer. We talk about that.
Folk horror in general, but Midsummer.
Folk horror in general, yeah. We've got a whole episode on lesbian vampires.
That's my episode. That is my birthday episode, and I'm particularly excited for that. But there's quite a few bangers in the vault.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Excellent. Yeah. Just to give people a flavor of what the podcast is about.
So we are an intersectional feminist podcast with people of kind of all walks of life, all different gender identities and sexual orientations, and we are looking at these movies and the different media from how femme presenting people are represented in them,
or experience them, honestly, because some of the topics are a little bit more like just how did we feel about this as femme presenting people,
right? And we try to do some movies that are written and directed by women, but it's also interesting to talk about movies that aren't, because that tends to be the majority, and it also, those movies tend to shape how women are viewed through movies in our culture, and
how we view ourselves.
Right, exactly. We talk about in the prom episode,
we look for ourselves in those movies.
Yeah, in the prom episode, we talk about Pretty in Pink and how that had sort of shaped the way a lot of young women and young femme presenting people viewed romantic relationships. And at the time, Ducky is a character that I love, but is also really problematic. He's kind of like a nice guy character, and the one that has sort of been held up as like, oh, this is what you want. You want a guy to be this interested in you, and no.
Yeah, he has his fair share of problems too.
Yeah, yeah.
It is an interesting viewpoint. I enjoy listening to it. So I would suggest if you're just into a good podcast, it's definitely worth listening to.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. We balance out the serious conversations with a lot of fun.
You got some interesting personalities on there.
Yes, definitely.
It's always good listening to everyone's point of view. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. And socials, where can people find you guys?
I'm at Horrorflick Tab on Instagram. You can find the Stiletto Banshees at the Stiletto Banshees on Instagram. That's where we post the most, but we're also on Threads and Blue Sky, I think.
I'm on Instagram at Miss Valentine 138. That's Miss Valentine 138. And I'm pretty active on there. I'm not really on anything else, but that's my main one.
No Blue Sky, you can join up now. It's open to everybody.
It's very similar to Twitter, old Twitter.
I have never even heard of this. What is this?
It's like Twitter without Elon Musk, so it's great.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And I think it was created by the same guy that created Twitter, right?
It was.
So it's basically like old Twitter.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I might catch me on that maybe at the same title.
All right. It's awesome having you guys on. Thank you so much. It's great having you.
Thank you for having us.
It's always fun. I always find movies that I had never, all of the 3 episodes I've done of this, I've been blown away by each movie. So I love doing this show.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. And when we come back, we'll talk about what's coming up next.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
Listen, mate, I need to splash the boots. Strain the potatoes.
G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Barry McKenzie's the name. He's got a great big grin and a great big chin. Give him half a chance, he'll be in like Flynn. His great big fist will flatten any palm. He's got a great big thirst, you can do your worst. When they tap the cake, he'll be in there first. It's no use, mate, you'll never win. He's a better man than you are, Gunga Din.
Raymond, this is Barry Mackenzie.
Go and stick your head up a dead bear's bum.
Look, Barry, seriously, I've been promising myself a trip to the old country ever since Norm's little operation. My family came from Britain many moons ago, you know.
Hello, sir. I'm terribly sorry, but somebody must have let that Australian lunatic on the set.
Excuse me, sir. Have you the time? Sorry, sport, but point of established fact at the present period of time, me watch wrist is shaking hands with my wife's best friend. If we can't make bread out of an authentic Australian folk singer, I'll quit this racket. Idiom. Right, you chose well, sir. You chose well here. Hey, like it? That'll be 43 guineas for this sweep.
Capital idea. I'll take the boy into my den and put it up to him.
Oh, no, you won't, you filthy old perv. I'll ask him.
I want you to think of me as someone that you can turn towards.
Yeah, from what I've heard of your mob, you won't catch me turning any other way.
From the Dingo Court to Sir Robert Ramsey. The adventures of
What, unbutton the mutton? You know, Point Percy at the porcelain.
I think he wants to go to the loo.
Next up on A Dingo Ate My Movie, I'll be joined again by Matt Fulton as we dive headfirst into the adventures of Barry Mackenzie and Barry Mackenzie Holds His Own. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. Thank you to all my guests who give their time to make this podcast possible, and a special thanks to you for listening. Don't forget you can follow A Dingo Ate My Movie on social media. We're at Dingo Movie on Twitter, Dingo Movie Pod on Facebook and Instagram, and we're on the web at dingomoviepod.com. If you'd like to support the show, leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, or share the show with your friends. Of course, you can always buy me a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/dingomoviepod. Once again, thanks for listening, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next episode of A Dingo Ate My Movie.